this is billed as the boarding versus day debate. What we mean by debate, though, is we're not going to have a big kind of contest with a winner at the end and all vote. It's really about the kind of debate that goes on inside your own head as a parent about what would suit you and your family and your child when you're making a decision between boarding and day schools. And we've got in the show today, a lot of London day schools and a lot of boarding schools, and we know that a lot of the parents who come to this event are weighing up that choice. So that's what we mean by debate. I've got a really interesting panel to help us address this question. Tom Rogerson is headmaster of Cottesmore, which is a boarding prep school just outside London. And a lot of parents who are thinking about boarding will, amongst other things, be thinking about, should I put my child into a prep school to board at 11 in preparation for a boarding senior school? Alexandra Haydon is head of Francis Holland Sloane Square, which is straightforwardly a day school. And then Alastair Chirnside is Warden of St Edward's, Oxford, which I think you've got day and boarding, is that right?
We do. We're 85% boarding and 15% day in our school in Oxford.
Great. So just to kick the topic off, I'm going to ask each of our heads to talk about, just to take a typical pupil and help us think about what they're doing at a particular time of day in a normal weekday. And we're going to quick fire go through one time at a time. So just imagine a pupil in your head and then tell us what they would be doing. So Tom, what would someone in your school be doing at 8 o'clock in the morning?
At 8 o'clock in the morning at Cottesmore School in West Sussex, boarding school for girls and boys, award-winning school, mind you. At 8 o'clock, what would they be doing? They would be eating a croissant, probably an egg, and having a bowl of cereal and some fruit, because they would be at breakfast.
Sounding pretty chilled. Okay, what would Francis Holland be doing at 8?
At Francis Holland, which is also an award-winning school, the girls would be on their way to school. Some of them would be coming from early morning sport, which happens at Battersea Park, and others would be making their way in. We also have some that get there very early in the morning to do ballet, so they might already be in school.
Okay, so let's take a typical one. How typically would a pupil get to school?
Variety. They come from all over the tube network, essentially, but because we're very well connected in the middle. So they come along on the tube or on the bus, or they walk in.
Okay,
so rolling along the street.
Okay, so eating a croissant on the tube. Alastair?
So there'll be a mixture of things. So some will be having breakfast in the dining hall. Others will be finishing off their morning training in sport. Others might be in the music department doing a little bit of practice for their lesson or their rehearsal later that day. So there's a real mix. And the boarders and the day pupils will be doing at Teddy's all those things together.
Okay, right. So there's a real difference at this point in the boarding day for the pupil. 10 o'clock probably gets more similar.
What's the next time?
10 o'clock. 10 o'clock.
What's the next one?
10 o'clock.
After 10 o'clock.
1 o'clock.
Right. So I'll go 10 or 11 o'clock. So 10 o'clock is quite boring because it's probably maths or
okay, that's fine.
English.
That's what we need.
Oh, God. And then 11 o'clock is much more interesting.
I would say 10 o'clock is not boring at all. They're in lessons, which are fascinating. And we have our brilliant staff that really stretch the girls. They find them really interesting. And so they're in lessons having a lovely time.
The same. Obviously, maths we think is interesting. They'll be in lessons. They'll
all
be
right.
on with the core bit.
The point of that question was that at 10 o'clock it's all the same, right? That basically they're all in lessons at 10 o'clock. All right, 1 o'clock. Let's take Alexandra first. Pretty hectic lunchtime schedule of activities.
Yeah, we have an extended lunchtime. We have a delicious lunch downstairs, and we also have a clubs program which has about 100 different clubs in it. So they will happen before school, middle of the day, and after school. And every child is involved in clubs. So they will probably be having lunch and dashing off to a club.
Yeah, so London day schools tend to have very hectic lunchtimes, don't they, with a lot of clubs and activities going on. Alastair, what's it like at yours at lunchtime?
So we have a lunchtime window between 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock, give or take, when houses have lunch at their allocated time. They're all together, so there are year group tables, all the year 9 pupils at one table, year 10 at another, and so on.
Are they in their houses, or are they?
They're in the central dining hall,
Right.
with house areas and house tables on a rotation. So when they're not in their lunch slot for 20-25 minutes or so in that window, then they'll be at other rehearsals. Maybe they're taking a dance lesson. Maybe they're going to a subject clinic to get a bit of help with a topic they might find a bit harder. So there's a wide range of things going on even at lunchtime beyond just having a good lunch.
Great, Tom.
1 o'clock is lunchtime again, so quite similar. There's family service for the younger ones, and then a sort of canteen style for the older ones. And after that, they will be, before geography or very interesting maths, they will be going off having 5 holes of golf, maybe, because we have a 9-hole golf course, so they can just slip off, have some golf. They might play tennis on the grass courts. They probably wouldn't go paddleboarding on the lake, because that's dangerous. They'd have to take a teacher with them for that, so probably not then. But lots and lots of things you can do around the grounds, because our facilities are quite extraordinary, as you'll find out from most boarding schools like Cottesmore.
Yeah, so it's just to draw out the comparison a bit further, or make it really clear, lunchtime in a lot of London day schools, senior schools, is quite intense, and lots of things happen. In boarding schools where there's more time for things to happen, it's often a slightly more chilled.
Can I just add something there, because we have really invested in these beautiful social spaces at Front Solent. So the girls are in clubs, or they're playing in our social space. So we have one for year 7 and 8, we have one for year 9 and 10, one for 11, and one for the sixth form. So they could be in a club, or they could be playing Jenga or goat cheese taco pizza, which is one of their new favourite games.
Great. So, and then let's just we'll combine them now. Let's do 4 o'clock and 7 o'clock, what people are doing then. So, Tom, do you want to start with yours?
Wish I'd brought my timetable with me with the 4 o'clock. My 4 o'clock, back in lessons, I don't know. Just about to change for, if it's this term, cricket. Girls and boys play cricket. The girls are through to the semi-quarterfinals of the IAPS National Tournament. I don't know if that's a woo. Is that a woo? Yes, Sophie, that's a woo. And they'll be changing for games at exactly 4 o'clock. I think you wanted us to be precise, don't you?
And 7?
And 7, right. They would have just eaten, and that is the time for... So I was about to talk about 11 o'clock, which is a wonderful, wonderful idiosyncratic time at Cottesmore, which is you do lots of activities. So you might be doing shooting, you might be doing, again, golf, you might be doing tennis, you might be doing extra English, extra maths. But after you eat at 7 o'clock, it's a slightly more informal. The younger ones are ferried and sort of pushed towards a specific thing. By the time they get to about the age of 11, they really should be choosing their own activities after supper. And so that's what they do. So they might be going off playing hockey with each other, or having a delightful time rolling around down a hill in the grass, or doing something very specific.
And will they have
like
done
extra work? Or if they're working for a scholarship, they might be obviously doing lots of revision at that point. So it's slightly more self-led at the older end of prep.
Does prep tend to happen before supper for the younger one?
Prep happens before.
Yeah.
Yep, supper, yeah.
Okay. Alexandra, 4 or 7?
Yeah, at 4 o'clock, some of our girls will be going home. Some will be going to our prep club so they can do their homework at school. Some will be going to one of the other clubs. We have lots of clubs that go until about 5:30, 6 o'clock. And then at 7 o'clock, most of them will be at home chatting to you and talking to you about their day. Some of them might we have lots of concerts and things like that. So they might be back in school for a concert, or stayed in school for a concert or something.
So 4 o'clock, we're about halfway through the school day, give or take, in a big boarding school. So 4 o'clock is going to be the tail end of games. So sports practices finishing on the playing fields, on the river, in the gym. It'll then be time for academic societies. So there'll be some which are academic and some which are much more around other interests. So beekeeping, ecology, feminism, coding, that kind of activity in the late afternoon. There'll be some pupils who are in rehearsal for dance or music, or in the chapel getting ready with the choir. Some of them will just be having a bit of downtime with their friends. So obviously we've talked about lots of things that the children in our schools do, but obviously they do have moments of downtime where they just relax with their friends. And they might be going out into Summertown from our school, which is a little suburb in Oxford where we're based. It's about a minute around the corner, haven't even got across the road. They can go maybe to get some shopping, go and have a cup of coffee with their friends, just be in the real world for a moment, and then come back in. And then later on in the evening, 7 o'clock, everybody's going to be doing the same thing in our school. That is the start of protected prep. So it's a 1 hour period where nothing else happens in the school apart from academic work. And that's great because there's no FOMO, there's no fear of missing out. Everyone's doing the same thing, everybody's getting on with their work. And that slot runs until 8. Between 8 and 9, there's a choice. Either it's more time in the house with the books, or it's another window for societies. Often these are academic societies, so visiting speakers, people coming in from the outside, maybe from Oxford University just down the road. We've had 7 professors come to talk at Teddy's so far this year, with a few more in the pipeline in the second half of the summer. And that's the kind of academic extension moment between 8 and 9 in the evening. And that's just a sense of some of the things that are going on in the late afternoon and the early evening. But the day doesn't really wrap up until bedtime starts, 9:30 or so for the children in Year 9, and then out to 10:30, 11 for the children in the sixth form.
Okay, so we've had a portrait there of the different kinds of days you get in a prep school, a senior boarding school, and a London day school. Now we're going to just run around a few sort of basic questions to help you think about what would suit your family more. I'm going to start perhaps with Alastair, I think, this time, and we'll do one question for each person rather than kind of go along the panel. Do you think you've got day and boarding in your school? Do you think that there are types of children who are better suited to being with or away from their parents as teenagers?
It's a good question. So I think generally all children benefit from gaining independence from their parents during their teenage years. So everybody gains in confidence from that. Everybody learns how to be their own person from that, whatever the starting point. So some children have higher levels of confidence than others. Whatever the starting point, everybody benefits to a degree. I think everybody benefits from preparation for university in a boarding context, getting ready for the world beyond school, because by the time they leave a boarding school, they've really learned how to be independent. I think boarding schools with all that range of opportunity are particularly good for children who enjoy new experiences and who enjoy meeting new people, because there are just more people to meet and there are more experiences to be had. And obviously we think we're offering the best of both because we are a day school and a boarding school, so the day pupils benefit from the same length of school day and the same opportunity of activity and provision as the boarders, but they get to go home at the end of the day, 9:30 or so they're heading home. But everybody, boarders and day pupils at Teddy's, is at a boarding school. The other observation I'd make is that in relation to which type of children might benefit, what kind of child would benefit from being in a boarding school, there are different types of boarding. So there's the kind of trunk and steamer, old-fashioned boarding, nobody's going home for 3-4 weeks at a time. And then there's our version of boarding, which is we think better. It's more modern, it's more progressive, it allows time for family. So we allow all the boarders at Teddy's to go home on a Saturday evening after their last school commitment, that's usually a match, and to come back again at 9 o'clock on a Sunday evening. So they're back in-house together for that really important unstructured social time at the end of the weekend. And most of them come back a bit earlier than that, about 6 o'clock or so on a Sunday evening. The school's filling up again. But if they need to go home because they want to be with you, and that's obviously as it should be, maybe they just want a change of scene, then they can. If they want to be in school with their friends, enjoying Oxford, taking advantage of the program which we run at the weekend, then they can do that too. So the short answer to your question is I think everybody benefits because it's how you learn to manage yourself, to be independent, to make your way in the world, to navigate social context, and those are really valuable life skills that are most readily developed in a boarding school model where the days are so long and the experience is so varied.
Tom, if you're a parent considering boarding, which quite a lot of people obviously here are, what age do you think you should start, and what's the value of going to a prep school before you go to a senior school?
First question was what age. First of all, I'd like to say that there are 2 boys standing there, and they are coming to try and find a senior school, but they are from Cottesmore, so they really do have all of the answers. So if you want to ask any of them these questions, they will give you a 1,000,000%, that's a lot, percent, better answer than I. But the answer to question 8, we start at 8. So that's a binary answer. Cottesmore starts at 8. and what's the benefit of going to a boarding school?
Well, let's think about. I mean, obviously, well, not obviously, but I assume that people join at different ages. So why do they do that?
So the main age to start is the prep school is 8. The benefit is, as we've been talking about, having that sense of independence, of growing your muscles of independence. The opportunity is extraordinary. If you come to Cottesmore, I hope some of you, 1 or 2 of you, will make it down to Cottesmore at some point. You'll just see it is the most extraordinary place. It is full of opportunity, and that's the word I would probably lead you with, is opportunity. That is the reason why you would come to a boarding prep school like Cottesmore, for the opportunity. These 2 chaps, you got Joe there. I said he's searching for a school, but he's going to Winchester. And he is a wonderful fisherman, obsessive. And we have a lake, and we go fishing. He can't go fishing on his own, but unsafe to do that. So I take him fishing down on the lake very frequently. We've just been banned, by the way, from fishing because the people who look after the lake say they're spawning, which is very annoying. But for 2 weeks, we won't be fishing. But so, for example, fishing. Monty is an all-round sportsman, a rugby player, a cricketer. I mean, it is at extraordinary levels of opportunity, not only on the sports field, not only creatively, but academically. We have absolutely amazing academic results, but they're not achieved through cramming. They're not achieved through this sort of a squashing into a diamond type education or hot housing. It's achieved through finding themselves, finding their passions, finding the things that they absolutely love, and giving them time to develop those things. I'd say that's why you might consider a boarding prep school, because it gives people time to become themselves. Don't know if you know Maslow's triangle, Maslow's pyramid of needs. The top one is self-actualization. Schools like Cottesmore are masterful at creating self-actualization. The top of the triangle. If you don't know Maslow, then I'd Google that, and you'll know exactly what I mean. It's finding themselves. So
boarding's making a very strong case. So I'm going to come back to Alexandra now. Let's think about. We're trying to help parents think about what would suit their family. Do you think there are certain types of family and certain kinds of parents who are not suited to boarding? I mean, there are a lot of London parents who like to manage their children's time, who want to be really involved with their children and take them to activities and take them to sport and all that kind of thing.
Absolutely, and we love working in partnership with our parents. And with us, you can be as hands-off as you like or as hands-on as you like. We have an amazing parents' association. We have lots of activities to get, lots of events for parents to get involved in the school. And we really like getting to know parents and working in partnership with them to support them. And it's lovely seeing them at all the events. I'll just adding, really in terms of independence, the girls are using London as their extended classroom, and that is just a joy to see. So in terms of the stretch and challenge and the opportunities that we can offer for work experience, popping out at lunchtime to go and work in the offices of an architect, coming back, for your lesson at 3:00 in the afternoon, or going out to do voluntary service at the food bank or somewhere like that. We really do give them the opportunities and more opportunities as they grow up to really sort of use their wings, find their wings to fly. And we're working in partnership with parents all the time to do that and to make sure we find the right opportunities for them.
Could I add just one point about that? I think boarding's really changed in the last 5-10 years. It's become much more local. So boarding schools that are 2-3 hours from home or further, that used to be pretty standard. And now that's quite rare. So most of our boarding parents are within 75-90 minutes of Oxford. And
I was going to ask you that question, actually. So, so how far should people be looking, do you think?
Well, it depends on what you do for a living and how flexible your time is. But obviously, we encourage parents to be there, to come to debates, to come to plays, to be in the audience for concerts, to come and support on the sideline of matches, to come to regattas, to cheer on our Teddy's crews. And we want people to be around. And we were hoping the sun's going to come out tomorrow for a parents' brunch that we're doing at lunchtime. We're not that optimistic. But we want people to be around. And I think parents want that too. So the question there, should parents let go? Well, parents are involved in the lives of their children all the way through their lives. And that's as it should be. Obviously, the degree changes as children grow up and become independent and take their place in the adult world, but parents are always involved, and we wouldn't want that to be any different in a boarding school from a day school. So how far is too far? It's a really personal decision, but to be able to come and go, I think that's really important. One of the other observations is that a lot of our families at Teddy's come from London. About a quarter of the school is based in London, and we try to make life a bit easier for London parents with a coach service that takes pupils back from London to Oxford. We run two. South Kensington via the M40 and Dulwich and Putney via the M4 back to Oxford on a Sunday evening. And we're looking at putting an outbound service in on a Saturday afternoon, just so that parents can not be there if it's just not possible. But we still will encourage parents to come in and support their children and be part of our community as they would be in a great day school.
I've got a hunch, Alexandra, I don't know if this is true, that I think day school children, particularly if they're academic, probably spend longer doing prep than boarding school children.
I think it depends on the school and the setup. We are very firm with our year 7s that they have 3 lots of 20 minutes every night, and as they go up, year 8, 3 lots of 25 minutes, and it's really kept to a kind of a very specific thing that they're being asked to do.
But do you think some spend longer than that? No,
I mean we tell them to draw a line and cut it off where they get to, and I really encouraging lots of other pursuits and intellectual curiosity, other things to get involved with. We want our children to be busy doing clubs. We actually sort of monitor how many clubs they take part in, and make sure that their clubs are really really pushing them. And if I think about a child I sat next to last week at the Upper Sixth Leavers dinner. She's doing 3 A-levels. She's doing biology, chemistry and drama, which is quite an unusual combination. She has a patent for her mastectomy bra that she's done as part of her entrepreneurial activities, and that's been developing all the way through the school. And so that kind of idea that we're just an academic hothouse or that London day schools are academic hothouses is just not... It's not valid or relevant anymore, because what we're doing is so much more about and equipping them for the future, that isn't just about getting those 3 grades at A-level.
Great. So what we're going to do now is open it up to the audience with a roving mic. So, oh, sorry, Tom, do you want to jump in?
Ask me a question.
Okay. Apologies.
I'll give you. I'll quickly continue. I'll
give you a slightly tricky one.
Right. Can I just get exactly the same? The traditional thing is, hothouse in London and the schools in the countryside aren't academic. It's not true that schools in London are all hothouses, and it is wildly incorrect that schools in the countryside are not academic. Cottesmore is highly academic. We have extraordinary results. So both things are true, and I think that's very, very pertinent. I think that's very 2012.
Okay, so
2012.
Yeah.
What are we in? 2025.
Yeah. So should parents worry about safeguarding?
No.
Well, everybody should worry about safeguarding.
Yeah, but obviously boarding schools have had. There's been a long.
Should they worry about safeguarding more in a boarding school than no? Day schools are just to have the propensity to things to happen just as much as boarding schools. So I'd say be wary of and treat safeguarding very, very seriously in a boarding school, in a weekly boarding school, in a day school, in a nursery school. Safeguarding is super important, literally everywhere.
Yeah. I completely agree. All schools should have safeguarding as their number one priority, so there shouldn't be a differential there.
Obviously, I agree with that completely. Any school leader who didn't say that, they wouldn't be in post. I mean, safety of children and their welfare, those are the paramount things in every school, above literally everything
above
else.
Anything. One
other observation, though, about school culture and looking after children and making sure they're happy and safe. One of the challenges is children telling people when they're not feeling happy, not feeling safe, when something isn't quite right in their lives. And one of the great strengths of a good school, and it could be a boarding school or a day school, but I think there's something slightly different about a boarding school where lots of staff are resident in school. So 80% of the teachers at Teddy's, for example, live on site in the school, is that they just know the children really well. they're there all the time at the clubs, societies. It's the same teachers in our school who teach the lessons in the morning, take the practices in sport in the afternoon, lead the rehearsals in dance and drama and music at tea time, and then are on duty in the houses in the evening. And maybe they're also in the audience for those events in the evening, those cultural events, those plays and those concerts and things, alongside pupils. So they're really getting to know them. And we have 520 people who work at Teddy's. 120 or so of them are full-time teachers, which is a huge number of people. It's one teacher for every 6 pupils in the school, give or take. So the quality of the relationships and the ability to recognize when something isn't going right is very high. The other observation is that children, I think, of all ages, find it easier to open up to other children. No matter how open the culture and how supportive the staff, it's still quite a thing to go and see a member of staff about something that's not right in your life. It's much easier to see another pupil and talk with them. So a culture in school, and this is true for day schools and for boarding schools, that ties the older pupils together, that's vertically integrated, that's a strong school culture. And it used to be that schools were vertically quite separate, and there was quite a lot of hierarchy. And if you see that, that's not a good school. It should be close. So we run a mentoring scheme where we train up all the pupils in the sixth form, for example, to act as mentors to pupils in the Shell and in the fourth form in year 9 and 10, to develop that closeness of relationship. And then beyond that, we also invite parents of those pupils in those 2 different year groups, sixth form and lower school, to come together to talk about the things that are going on in their children's school lives, to make a social connection, so that the parents of younger children can learn from the experience of the parents of children who've gone through school, who've chosen their subjects and gone to the party by themselves and taken public transport independently for the first time. And that sharing of experience is all part of the same point about community. So safety is paramount, and it follows from culture, and the best way in which to get a sense of that is to visit any of our schools, or indeed any school.
Absolutely, and can I just add in there that culture of the school is so important. And if you are going to visit schools, really looking for that relational nature between the adults and the pupils, and between the pupils and the pupils, that's something that we really pride ourselves on, something that we work we put front and centre of everything that we do for exactly that reason. It's the culture of the school that sets everything on fire.
So we're getting quite cohesive now as a panel, which probably doesn't help you if you're trying to make a choice between boarding and day. So what we're going to do now is throw it open to the audience. So we've got a question here to start off with. Thank you.
Hi. So social media, phones, been a lot in the media generally. How do you tackle them?
I'll start here. So we have no phones at all during the day. We have a wonderful thing called a yonder pouch. And so the child might have their phone to get to school. But literally they're putting them in the yonder pouches as they come in the door in the morning, and they're clicked and magnetically locked shut. And it is brilliant. We've been like that for the last 4 or 5 years. So we have a real culture of play, and that's something that I absolutely love. I go into the social spaces at lunchtime, and I see children sort of crawling around the floor playing charades or doing crochet or something like that. They're not sitting in the corner scrolling, which is deeply depressing. And then we do a lot of work about managing social media outside school and working with parents to give them the tools to help in that regard. But no phones in school.
But outside school, as a parent of a teenage girl and teenage boy, it's really tough. And particularly as they get a bit older, it's almost impossible to kind of do screen time and bans beyond a certain age.
I do think though there's much more unity amongst parents on that now, and we tell people what we think the guidelines should be. We give them tools to say this is how you do it. Have a shelf in the kitchen that it's left on, put it on airplane mode, all of this stuff. So we give them a set of rules, and so that they've got boundaries to follow at home. And I think that's got a lot better in the last 3-4 years.
But let's hear how boarding schools do it.
It's a really good question, and obviously there's more on which we agree than disagree. But I think there, as a point of difference between boarding and day, the control of technology is easier in a boarding school. So it's got to be gradated. So when children leave school, they will have no one telling them to put their phone down, no one telling them to manage their screen time. They will be by themselves, independent, with their phones and making their way in the world. So they have to be ready for that when they leave. So we run gradated rules, and I don't think you'll find stricter rules at any school. Parents normally like them. Children are less keen. So in year 9, there are no phones at Teddy's at all in year 9 at any point between Sunday evening when they go to bed and hand their phones in, and Saturday lunchtime when they get them back. They have to hand them in again in year 9 at the end of the day on Saturday when they go to bed. They get them back after brunch on a Sunday, and again they're handed in overnight at the end of Sunday afternoon. So there are some windows in the day. I'll come back to how we manage communication with parents in a minute. That's really important. Very quickly, the same rules in year 10. Phones only for a couple of hours twice a week in year 11. No phones and except between lunchtime and bedtime, even in year 12, and no phones overnight, even in the upper 6th. Very quickly, last point. Those rules are super strict, especially, well, at every stage they're very strict. They're set very, very narrowly bounded. That makes it very easy for parents to set tight rules which are more generous than ours. So the arguments that happen in households about when I can and can't have my phone, this is outrageous, those arguments are made easier by parents being generous, very generous by comparison with our rules, and it's very hard to impose restrictions from a totally liberal open starting point. Very quickly.
At Cottesmore, it's very simple for us, and I think it's justified. The children don't have devices, personal devices. They have academic devices, like pretty much every single school in the UK. So it's easy for us. So then you go, oh, well, that's all very well, but how do they learn? How do they know how to act when they get to school X when they're 13? And it's all about education. And some of you, one or two of you may know that Cottesmore has been leading globally, rather terrifyingly, in the digital space, in AI, in esports. And it sort of sits at a really interesting juxtaposition because we are a very outdoorsy school, making dens outside, playing cricket, is what Cottesmore people know Cottesmore for. But we're not doing it because we love AI, and we're not actually doing it, I'm not driving it because I love esports. I'm doing it because I want the children to understand AI so that they can either think it's fantastic or they can think it's awful. But they've reached that impression, they've reached that conclusion through intelligent research rather than just making assumptions. So that's why Cottesmore does what it does. We want to, also the other reason why Cottesmore leads on the digital front is because we want to inject a little bit of humanity, a little bit of warmth, a little bit of community, and the types of behaviour that we see at our schools into the digital realm, because we're not very happy with the digital realm, and we want to make sure the digital realm has a little bit more warmth and community.
Great. Next question. Over there.
So my question is about adaptations and inclusion for neurodiversity and how that compares for day schools to boarding schools.
Yeah. So we have a lot of work. We have a wonderful learning strategies department who work with our girls to think about not only how lessons might how they're going to work best in lessons, what they can do to help themselves in lessons, but also what teachers can do to help them, but also all about the other little bits and important bits around the school day, navigating lunchtime, navigating clubs, all of those things. So we do a lot of work with families and we do a lot of work with the girls. And I would say that's probably the same at any good school. Lots and lots of work wrapping around.
Couple of other observations about our learning support at St Edward's. I think the length of the school day is an advantage in learning support. So we have five people working in our learning support department, and 3 of them live in the school. So in the evening, when pupils are doing prep independently in the houses, those teachers will be going around the houses, checking in with pupils with whom they're working in clinics and support classes during the day to see how they're getting on in their independent work. That's one observation. The second is that because the school day is so long, it's very easy for pupils to drop in. So obviously there are timetable classes with specialist teachers for those who need that kind of additional support. But any pupil can drop in any time, and the department's open all the time, practically all the time, and there's a steady traffic of pupils in and out just to go and check in with their learning support teacher about something that's causing them concern. The other observation is that in the evening, in the boarding houses, when pupils are doing their work, There's a tutor team which is on duty, so there are the resident staff in the houses on duty, and then there are the visiting tutors who are regular members of teaching staff who are looking after 6 or 7 pupils. But they're going around the whole house and they're checking in with all pupils on their work. So if a child needs a bit of help and support with their learning, specialist or not, then the tutor's there to provide it. So I think those are 2 other observations. But at the heart of it lie really specialist teachers who are properly qualified and able to help with whatever particular learning need a child has.
I think the answer at Cottesmore especially is care and understanding. You meet one person with autism and you've met one person with autism. You haven't met all people with autism. So you need to understand that individual person. And Cottesmore's 205 pupils can't be any bigger. That's the real benefit of, and it's not a boarding thing really, it's a size thing. And every single adult knows every single child in the entire school. And that network, that complex network of understanding and care is what makes Cottesmore a special place for people with neurodiversity. And we can have an enormously long 3-hour debate on what is neurodiversity, but that's how Cottesmore deals with it. And a lot of other schools, like Cottesmore, boarding schools, it's that individual, bespoke, deep, warm care and understanding.
Great. We've probably got time for about 1 or 2 more questions. Who would anybody else like to ask?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just wondering how your school is planning to respond to the growing trend of private equity. At the moment, we have all this kind of VAT issue. How the school gonna respond when the private equity get more involved to school? First, about school culture, as you mentioned about. Secondly, about the whole, like the fee, scholarship, all this kind of things. What's your plan to fixing this new challenge? Thank you.
We are a charitable trust, and we're a family of schools, and we fully intend to stay as a charitable trust. I think that's part of our values and ethos, and about everything that we do. We've been a charitable trust for the last 150 years.
Only other observation I make on that, we're also a charitable trust, totally independent, not part of a chain, not controlled by private equity. We are our own charitable entity. I think the commercialization of education is a risk. And it shouldn't be about the bottom line, it should be about the children in the school. The fees are very high. So day school fees are very high, boarding school fees are even higher, and everybody running schools, everybody working in schools, everybody governing schools, everyone knows that that is something that we can't let that carry on. They can't inflate at the same rate, otherwise nobody will be able to afford it. So it's an incumbent on us, one, to be as efficient as we can be, without compromising pupils' experience. So cutting subjects, cutting activities, reducing headcount, all those things come at a cost to children, and we should try at all costs to avoid that. So what we need to do instead is generate more commercial revenue. So new international schools, new commercial opportunities in the holidays, getting as much money as possible from sources other than the school fee. That is the way in which to manage our way through it, not by making the experience of children in fee-paying schools poorer, because that would in the end be self-defeating, and most importantly, it would be what would be the right thing to do by your children.
Yeah.
Cottesmore is a truly independent, family-run school. We've been around since 1894, and we don't intend to become part of a private equity-based company or the part of a senior school. Having said that, if anybody's from private equity and wants to give us lots of money, then I'd be very willing to accept it if they realised that it wouldn't change Cottesmore's family independent status in the slightest. I don't know if that's very attractive for private equity, but I'm very willing to accept money from private equity. No, it's really interesting. I'd love to hear your views and everybody's views. Don't have time for it, but it's incredibly interesting. But Cottesmore is not involved, and it's very proudly not involved.
Okay, we've got. I'm sorry. I'm going to pass because unfortunately we've literally got 5 minutes till the next talk starts. So I'm going to say big thank you to our panel.